Here's my review of The Smashing Machine. Now, this is a movie that I feel like has been getting a lot of hype, or at least before the movie released, a lot of hype for this movie. And I feel like a lot of it had to do with maybe curiosity. As this is obviously a Dwayne Johnson movie, but this is, like many people are saying, the first Dwayne Johnson movie where he's actually trying. He actually feels like he's acting and not just doing the same old thing that he always does. And I feel like kind of that's what all the hype and lead up towards this movie's been, where Dwayne Johnson, to be fair, Dwayne Johnson, I will say, in this movie is pretty good. He actually is good in this movie. And that is good because, let's be honest, he's not really that good of an actor. So him actually giving a solid performance, that's what a lot of the hype around this movie was. And I feel like if you just want to see a solid performance from him, you're going to get that. But the only problem, or not, I guess the main big problem is, although he's good, the movie itself, I don't think is bad. I thought it was solid, but it's not great. A lot of this stuff is kind of stuff that you'd expect from a biopic movie. Like, it's something that you would know. The rise and fall, etc., or rise again of this. And this from someone, like, I don't know anything about UFC fighting at all. I don't care about it at all. And him playing this famous UFC fighter called Mark Kerr, and just kind of like the personal struggles that he went through, his addiction to drugs, as he's like improving on his fighting and wrestling. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here, but I just don't really think that it was told in the best way. Like, and I would say also the cinematography I think is very good in this movie, but just sometimes the story is just not the most compelling. Another thing I will say is Emily Blunt is very good in this movie. I think that she gives a good performance. I think as Mark's girlfriend, you see just this tension between them the whole time, as he's just so focused on like himself really, and just being the best fighter in the world, that he kind of just loses touch with his own girlfriend. And it's like a classic, I guess, downfall movie, even though it's also a like fame movie of someone getting big. It's like, no, that's why it's kind of difficult to talk about this movie, is because in many ways it's nothing really new for this type of genre. Like, the main selling point is, oh hey, do you want to see Dwayne Johnson actually give a decent performance? And like I said, if that is what you want to see, I think that he gives a good performance. And there's so much almost difficulty to watch in, which I think is a good thing here, because they do have such a toxic performance, Mark and his girlfriend, that it is kind of compelling. Like, whether she's like just making his protein shake and then he does it wrong, and then they just kind of have this argument, that stuff is well acted, and I think that they both did a good job. But it's just I feel like this movie didn't really have like it didn't have like a main through line. It was kind of like we're following different points in his life, as opposed to like, it doesn't really feel like your average standard plot, like act 1, 2, 3 structure, because it jumps around in the years. And some movies can do that and do it well, but I just don't think that this is one of those movies, unfortunately. I think that it has a major problem with pacing. It's only about like 2 hours, but it feels very long and slow. And I'm all down for slow dramas, and I love slow dramas. They're great. But they're great, I think, if they're done correctly. And I just don't think that this one was done correctly. And I think just the main thing with this movie is Dwayne Johnson does give a genuinely good performance. And I feel like that might be in the cinematography is good. And I think that the story is interesting, but it's just not really enough. Like, this movie has been maybe hyped, or at least by Dwayne Johnson, and A24 itself has been hyping this up as this great, beautiful movie. It's solid, but I don't really think it's great. I thought it was pretty good, but it's one where I watched and I'm like, that was okay. That was pretty good. But it just has nothing that makes me kind of want to go back to it. And it doesn't really have that one thing I'll walk away from. When I think about this movie, I'll just say that was a pretty good performance from Dwayne Johnson. But in terms of the story, it's just not really super interesting. And even like you'd think when you're watching this movie, it feels like they're setting up something that could be very, very interesting. That sounded very interesting. Where he and his friend in this movie, like were both like these fighters, might have to fight each other, and that could have been a very interesting personal conflict. But that never happened. And I get it, like, this is a true story. If that didn't happen in real life, they're not going to put it in the movie. But why put the narrative to be like that? Why make the audience think that there's going to be this highly personal fight just for there not to be one? It's just kind of it's an odd choice. I don't understand why they would push that as much as they did, because that's where I thought it was going. That's where I hoped it was going, because I thought that could have been interesting. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So yeah, overall, I think that this movie was solid. I think that the performances are very good, and I think that it has good cinematography. But I think on a story and character level, it's just not the greatest. I think that it had a lot more potential. To be fair, I didn't get my expectations that high because for me, like, I'm not really super into A24 movies. I get why people are. I get that. And I will say, it's just one of those things, like, with Dwayne Johnson, it's like, I don't really trust him with movies because he's kind of just meh. Like, I like him. I like him, but, like, in terms of an actor, he's kind of meh. And I think even though I think he was good in this movie, the scripts that he's been picking lately just, like, aren't the greatest. So that being said, I still thought this movie was solid. I would give it like a 6.5 maybe. It was solid, but it was really just nothing special.